The mining colony on Epsilon 6 sat on the edge of human space. It was a collection of white domes and metal buildings nestled in a valley between red mountains. The colony was home to 400 people, mostly miners and their families. They dug for rare minerals to send back to Earth. Jack Miller walked his usual path around the colony's outer ring. As head of security, he liked to check the perimeter himself each morning. The sun was just rising over the mountains, casting long shadows across the rocky ground. Jack was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face lined from years spent outdoors. He had gray at his temples and a scar above his right eye from a mining accident years ago. Jack's radio crackled. "Chief, you need to come to the command center, right away." It was Susan Wright, the colony's diplomatic officer. "What's happening?" Jack asked, already changing direction. "Something's entered orbit around the planet. Something big." Jack began to run. In his 5 years on Epsilon 6, there had never been an unscheduled ship arrival. The next supply vessel wasn't due for 3 months. The command center was busy when Jack arrived. People moved quickly between screens and workstations. Governor Patricia Long stood in the center of the room, her normally calm face now tight with concern. "Jack, there you are," she said when she saw him. "We've got visitors." On the main screen was an image of a massive vessel. It was unlike any ship Jack had ever seen. It had a central body shaped like an oval with spines extending outward. It was at least 5 times larger than the biggest Earth ships. "Have they made contact?" Jack asked. Susan nodded. "About 10 minutes ago. They call themselves the Krathik. They say they want to meet us." "And you believe them?" Jack asked. "We need to assume good intentions," Governor Long said. "This is what humanity has been waiting for. First contact with an intelligent, alien species. Susan is already preparing a welcome ceremony." Jack looked at the ship again. Something about it made his skin crawl. "With all due respect, Governor, I think we should be cautious. We should contact Earth first, get instructions." "That would take weeks to get a response," Susan said. "The Krathik have offered to send representatives down in a few hours. We can't keep them waiting." "We can set up the meeting in the main dome," Governor Long decided. "Susan, prepare a welcome speech and some gifts, something that represents human culture." "I want a double security," Jack said, "and keep their group small, no more than 5 visitors." Governor Long looked like she wanted to argue, but then nodded. "Fine, but make sure your people are on their best behavior. No weapons on display. We want to make a good first impression." 4 hours later, Jack stood at the landing pad watching as a small shuttle descended from the alien ship. It was sleek and moved with an eerie silence. Around him, a crowd of colonists had gathered to witness history. Children sat on parents' shoulders for a better view. Some people held signs with welcome messages. The shuttle landed with barely a sound. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a door slid open and several tall figures emerged. The Krathik stood over 7 feet tall. They walked on 2 legs, but had 4 additional limbs attached to their torsos. Their bodies were covered in a hard, dark material that might have been armor or might have been their skin. Their heads were shaped like teardrops with the narrow end pointing down, and had multiple small eyes arranged in patterns. Susan Wright stepped forward, a small box of gifts in her hands. "On behalf of the human race and the colony of Epsilon 6, I welcome you to our home." One of the Krathik moved forward. A small device on its body glowed and a mechanical voice spoke. "The soft meats offer greeting noises. This is predicted behavior." Susan's smile faltered slightly, but she continued. "We hope this meeting will be the beginning of a friendship between our species." The Krathik made a clicking sound that the translator didn't convert. Then it said, "We wish to observe your colony. Show us your numbers and your defenses." Jack stepped forward. "We'd be happy to give you a tour of some of our public facilities. Why don't we start with the hydroponics bay?" The alien turned all its eyes toward Jack. The hard-faced soft meat attempts authority. Amusing. Governor Long quickly moved between them. "Please follow me. We've prepared a welcome celebration in our main dome." As the group walked toward the colony, Jack stayed, close to the aliens. Something was wrong, he felt it in his gut. The same feeling he'd had during the riots on Mars right before things went bad. In the main dome, tables had been set with food and drinks. A band played soft music in the corner. The colonists stood around, trying not to stare at the aliens. "This is where most of our community gatherings take place," Susan explained as she led the tour. "We have about 400 residents currently." "Only 400?" the lead Krathic asked. "A small snack, then." "I'm sorry, there must be a translation error," Susan said with a nervous laugh. "No error," the alien replied. "A joke. Do soft meats understand jokes?" Throughout the day, the Krathic toured the colony. They showed special interest in the population records, the power plant, and the security office. Jack followed them everywhere, watching as they took readings with strange devices and spoke to each other in their clicking language. That night, after the aliens had returned to their shuttle with promises to continue discussions the next day, Jack met with Governor Long in her office. "I don't trust them," he said. "Their translator works too well for a first meeting. They knew too much about us. That's just your security training making you paranoid," Governor Long replied. "This is a peaceful scientific mission." "Then why did they ask so many questions about our defenses? Why did they want to know about Earth's military? They called us soft meats, for God's sake." "Cultural differences, Jack. We can't judge them by human standards." Jack was about to argue more when his radio buzzed. "Chief, we have a situation in Section C," a voice said. "You need to see this." 20 minutes later, Jack stood looking down at the body of Officer Peter Lee. The young security guard had been cut open with surgical precision. His organs were arranged beside him as if for study. "No signs of struggle," Dr. Frank Bennett said as he examined the body. "He was alive when they started cutting." Jack looked at the security camera in the corner of the room. "Get me the footage." The recording showed Peter walking his patrol route. Then the camera flickered, and when the image returned, Peter was already dead. Someone had tampered with it. Jack raised his radio. "This is Chief Miller. All security personnel to alert status. Find the aliens. Now." But it was already too late. Outside, the night sky lit up as more shuttles descended from the Krathic ship. The jokes were over. The invasion had begun. The morning sun rose over a changed Epsilon 6. Smoke rose from 3 of the colony's domes. The landing pad where the Krathic had first arrived was now filled with their shuttlecraft. Aliens moved through the colony streets, their 8 limbs, carrying them with frightening speed. Olivia Chen pressed her back against the cold metal wall of the maintenance tunnel. She could hear the clicking language of the Krathic somewhere above her. Her hands shook as she tried to keep quiet. With her were 11 other colonists who had escaped the initial attack by fleeing into the colony's underground service network. "What do they want?" whispered Ben, a young miner with a bleeding cut on his forehead. "Us," said Olivia. "They're hunting us." She had seen it happen. The Krathic had burst into the engineering section where she worked. They didn't just kill. They captured. They took people alive, wrapping them in some kind of webbing and carrying them away. Only luck had saved Olivia. She had been checking a faulty pipe in a crawl space when they came. "We need to find weapons," said Rita, an older woman who worked in hydroponics. "With what? Mining lasers against their technology?" Ben asked. "You saw what they did to security." Olivia closed her eyes. Everyone had seen. The colony's security force had tried to fight back when the shuttles landed. The Krathic cut through them in minutes. Their weapons fired bursts of energy that could melt through the colony's doors. "We need to find other survivors," Olivia said. "Maybe Jack Miller got some people out." A sound from above made them all freeze. Through a grate in the ceiling, they could see 2 Krathic warriors dragging a human between them. The man was still fighting, kicking as they pulled him. "Stop struggling, soft meat," said the mechanical voice of the translator. "It only makes the meat taste strange," the man screamed, as they dragged him around a corner and out of sight. "They're going to eat us," Ben whispered, his face pale. "We don't know that," Olivia said. But she didn't believe her own words. The group waited until they were sure the aliens were gone, then moved deeper into the tunnel system. The maintenance tunnels ran beneath all the colony's domes, carrying Power, water, and air. Olivia knew them well from her work as an engineer. The emergency bunker, she said suddenly. If anyone survived, they might be there. The colony's emergency bunker was built to withstand meteorite strikes and radiation storms. It was located beneath the main command center and had its own air and power systems. It's on the other side of the colony, Rita said. We'd have to cross through the main dome. No, we can use the tunnels, Olivia explained. They connect everything, we just need to be careful at the junction points. It took them hours to make their way through the narrow tunnels. Twice they had to hide as Krathic patrols passed overhead. Once they found the body of a colonist who had tried to hide in the tunnels, but had been discovered. Olivia led them, passed without comment. When they reached the area beneath the command center, Olivia stopped them. The bunker entrance is through there, but we need to be careful. It's a larger space and might have aliens. She eased open the access door and peered into the larger maintenance room beyond. It was dark, lit only by emergency lights. There was no sign of the Krathic. Let's go, she whispered. They had just entered the room when a figure stepped from the shadows. Olivia nearly screamed before she recognized the face. Jack, she whispered. Jack Miller lowered the gun he had pointed at them. Olivia, you're alive. His face was bruised and dried blood caked his left arm. We've been hiding in the tunnels, she explained. We thought maybe people would be at the bunker. Some of us made it, Jack said. Follow me. He led them to what looked like a solid wall. He pressed his palm against a hidden scanner and a section of the wall slid open. Quickly, he said. Inside the bunker, Olivia was surprised to find almost 30 people. Some were injured, lying on makeshift beds. Others were checking weapons or looking at screens showing different parts of the colony. A tall man with a shaved head approached them. More survivors? He asked Jack. Found them coming through the tunnels, Jack replied. I'm Alan Foster, the man said to Olivia. Used to be a Marine before I came here to run mining drills. Olivia Chen, engineer. Alan nodded. We need engineers. We're trying to figure out how to fight back. Olivia looked around the bunker. Fight back? How? There must be hundreds of them out there. 142 that we've counted, Jack said. Too many for a direct fight, but we're not giving up. He led Olivia to a table where maps of the colony were spread out. They've taken over the main dome and the residential areas. They're using the processing plant as some kind of command center. They've got guards at all the main entrances, but they don't seem to know about all the maintenance tunnels yet. What are they doing with the people they catch? Olivia asked, dreading the answer. Jack's face darkened. We don't know exactly. They're taking them to their ships. We think they see us as food or maybe test subjects. The few times we've managed to get close, we've heard screams. Olivia felt sick. So what's the plan? Right now, we're gathering information and resources, Alan said. We managed to save some weapons from the security armory before it fell. Not much, but it's something. He showed her a small collection of guns, mining explosives, and other tools that might serve as weapons. The Krathic seem to have a strict chain of command, Jack explained. We've noticed that when we take out one of their leaders, the others get disorganized for a while. They rely on their technology, Alan added, and they think we're just scared animals. They aren't expecting us to fight back in any organized way. That's their weakness. A woman at one of the screens called out, Jack, you need to see this. They hurried over. On the screen was a view of the colony's main square. A large group of humans was being held there, surrounded by Krathic warriors. A bigger alien, decorated with what looked like paint or symbols on its shell, stood before them. The alien's translator voice boomed loud enough for the bunker's microphones to pick up. Humans of Epsilon 6, your colony now belongs to the Krathic hegemony. Surrender yourselves for processing. Those who resist will suffer before processing. Those who surrender will be processed quickly. What does it mean by processing? Olivia asked. No one answered. They didn't need to. Jack turned to face the group. We need to organize. Form teams. Some for reconnaissance, some for sabotage, some for rescue if possible. We need to find a way to communicate with other survivors, Olivia suggested. There must be others hiding like we were. Alan nodded. And we need to figure out their weaknesses. Every enemy has them. As they began to plan, a message played across all colony channels. The Krothic commander's voice filled the bunker. Humans, we know some of you are hiding. It amuses us. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Your colony's defenses are nothing to our technology. You have 1 day to surrender. After that, we will find you, and you will wish you had chosen. Quick processing. Jack switched off the screen. 1 day, he said. Then we show them what humans can do when cornered. Olivia looked at the determined faces around her. Maybe they were outmatched. Maybe they would fail. But they would not go. Quietly, the resistance had begun. 2 days had passed since the invasion began. The colony of Epsilon 6 was no longer recognizable. The Krothic had transformed the main dome into their center of operations. Strange devices now covered the walls, and the air smelled different, a mix of chemicals that made humans cough. In the emergency bunker, Jack Miller looked at his growing group of fighters. They now numbered 47. Other survivors had found their way to them through the maintenance tunnels. Each person brought stories of Krothic cruelty and news from other parts of the colony. They get confused when they lose a leader, Jack told the group. We've seen it twice now. Kill one of their commanders and the rest don't know what to do for a while. But their armor is too strong for our guns, said a miner named Carl. The mining lasers barely scratch them. Alan Foster stepped forward. That's why we aim for the joints. He pointed to a rough drawing of a Krothic warrior. Here, here, and here. Where the plates don't quite meet, that's where they're vulnerable. Olivia had spent the last 2 days working on the colony's systems. She had managed to tap into the environmental controls without alerting the aliens. I figured out how to mess with the air in the sectors they control, she reported to Jack. Not enough to kill them, but enough to make them uncomfortable. They'll have to use their own life support systems. Good, Jack nodded. Anything that forces them to use resources helps us. A woman stepped into the circle. She had dirty blonde, hair pulled back in a tight bun and soil on her hands. Kate Reynolds was the colony's head botanist. I have something, she said simply. She held up a small vial filled with green powder. This is a combination of plant toxins from our experimental crops. I've tested it on a piece of Krothic shell we recovered. It eats through it. A murmur went through the group. Kate continued. It attacks the material between their armor plates. Mix it with water, make a paste, and apply it to weapons or traps. When it contacts their exoskeleton at the joints, it will start to dissolve the connective tissue. Alan took the vial and looked at it with respect. How much can you make? With what I have access to in the agricultural dome, enough for maybe 20 weapons, Kate replied. But I need more materials from the lab. That's in Krothic territory now, Jack said, frowning. I can get her there, Olivia offered. Through the maintenance tunnels, they run right under the lab section. Jack considered this, then nodded. Okay, but you'll need backup. He looked at Alan. Take 2 others, get in, get what she needs, then get out. No heroics. As the meeting broke up, Olivia approached a young technician named Roy who had been working on communications. Any luck? She asked. Roy shook his head. They're jamming all standard signals. We can't reach Earth or any other colonies. What about internal comms? Have you found a way to talk to other survivor groups? Roy brightened a bit. Actually, yes. Sort of. He showed her a small device he had built. I've modified some maintenance, drones to carry messages. They can travel through the water pipes without being detected. Water pipes? Yeah, the whole colony is connected by them. We can send written messages to any section. Olivia smiled for the first time in days. That's perfect. We need to coordinate with anyone else who's fighting back. Meanwhile, Alan led a small team, including Kate and 2 security officers, through the narrow maintenance tunnels toward the agricultural dome. They moved silently, stopping whenever they heard sounds from above. Hold, Alan whispered, raising his hand. They froze. Through a grate in the ceiling, they could see several Krothic moving equipment. One of them was larger than the others, with markings on its shell. "That's a commander," Alan whispered. "See how the others defer to it?" They watched as the Krothic set up what looked like a scanning device. The commander made clicking sounds, and its translator spoke. "The humans are using these tunnels. Find their nest." The group backed away silently, taking a different route. When they reached a junction, Alan made a decision. "Change of plans. We're going to set a trap for that commander." Kate looked uncertain. But Jack said, "Jack wants to hurt them. Taking out a commander will do that." Alan replied, "We have your toxin and we have some mining explosives. We can do this." They worked quickly, setting explosives at key points in the tunnel ceiling. Kate prepared her toxin, coating sections of metal they had sharpened into spikes. They placed these under the spots where the ceiling would collapse. "Now we wait," Alan said, hiding his team in a side passage. They didn't wait long. Soon they heard the clicking of Krothic limbs in the tunnel above them. Alan held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. He pressed the detonator. The explosion was controlled but effective. The ceiling collapsed and 2 Krothic warriors fell through, including the commander. Before the aliens could orient themselves, Alan and his team attacked, driving the toxin-coated spikes into the joints of their armor. The effect was immediate and horrible. The Krothic made high-pitched sounds as the toxin ate into their bodies. The commander thrashed, its limbs failing as the toxin spread. "Let's go," Alan said once both aliens had stopped moving. They collected samples of the Krothic technology, including the commander's translator, and hurried back toward the bunker. Back at the bunker, Roy had made contact with another group of survivors, led by a maintenance worker named Luis. They had been hiding in the water reclamation plant and had their own story of resistance. "They've been poisoning the Krothic water supply," Roy told Jack. "Not enough to kill, but enough to make them sick. And they say they've captured one of the smaller aliens. They're studying it, learning about its weaknesses." Jack was updating their map with this new information when Alan's team returned. Everyone gathered to hear about their success. "We've confirmed what we suspected," Alan said, holding up the commander's translator. "They have a strict hierarchy. When the commander died, the other warriors became disorganized. They were milling around, making noise, not sure what to do. You use that translator to understand their communications?" Jack asked. "Better," Alan grinned. "We can use it to send fake orders." As they discussed this new possibility, a prisoner was brought into the bunker. It was Governor Long, her face bruised but her eyes clear. She had been rescued by Luis's group from the administration building. "They're not just capturing us randomly," she told Jack once she had been given water and food. "They're evaluating us. I heard them talking. This is just a scouting mission, Jack. A test to see how dangerous we are." "What do you mean?" Olivia asked. "Their main fleet isn't here yet. This is just an advance party," Governor Long explained. "They categorized us as Type 4 minimal threat in their database. They weren't expecting resistance. Every time we fight, back they're updating that threat assessment." Jack and Alan exchanged looks. "Then we need to make sure they update it all the way to not worth the trouble," Alan said. Later that night, as most of the survivors slept, Olivia worked on integrating the Krothic translator with their communication system. She had an idea, forming a way to use the aliens' own technology against them. If the Krothic thought humans were just scared animals, easy prey, they were about to learn how wrong they were. She looked up to see Jack watching her. "We're going to win this, aren't we?" she asked. Jack didn't smile, but his eyes were determined. "We're going to make them regret ever thinking humans were food." Outside, in the colony they thought they had conquered, the Krothic were about to face the full creativity and determination of a species that had survived countless disasters. On their home planet, humanity wasn't going to fall to these aliens, not today, not ever. 3 weeks had passed since the Krothic invasion began. The alien force that had expected an easy conquest now faced something they had never encountered before: humans who refused to be prey. The resistance had grown. There were now 5 separate groups operating throughout the colony, all connected through Roy's water pipe communication system. Each group had found different ways to fight back. Each small victory made the next one easier. Jack Miller looked at the map they had created of Krathic positions. Red marks showed where the aliens had established strong points. Blue marks showed where resistance attacks had been successful. "They're pulling back," Jack said, pointing to several areas where the Krathic had abandoned their posts, consolidating around their landing ships and the main dome. "They're getting nervous," Alan agreed. He had become Jack's right hand, leading many of the more dangerous missions. His military experience had proven invaluable. "Their supply lines are stretched. We've destroyed 3 of their food storage areas." Olivia had been working with the captured Krathic technology. She had reprogrammed 12 mining drones to serve as mobile bombs. The squat-wheeled machines normally used for digging ore could now be remotely guided into Krathic positions. "The drones are ready," she reported. "I've installed the detonators. One press and boom." Kate Reynolds had expanded her work with plant toxins. She had created enough of the poison to coat weapons for every fighter. She had also developed a gas version that could be released through the air vents in Krathic-controlled areas. "It won't kill them," she explained, "but it will make them weak and confused for a few hours, enough time for us to move in." Governor Long had provided critical information from her time as a prisoner. "They keep records of everything. They've been updating their assessment of humans as a threat. When I escaped, they had moved us from Type 4 to Type 3. They're worried." Jack gathered everyone together to explain the plan. "We hit them all at once, every command post, every guard station, every landing pad. We've mapped their patrol routes and shift changes. We know when they're weakest." "And then?" asked Luis, the leader of the water plant group. "Then we push toward their main landing craft," Alan said. "We can't let them leave with what they know about us. If they report back to their fleet, the next attack will be worse." "We have one advantage they don't expect," Jack added. "They think they're hunting animals. They don't understand that we're hunting them now." That night, the Resistance put their plan into action. Kate's gas was released through the environmental systems in the Krathic living quarters. At the same time, Olivia's mining drones rolled silently into position near alien command posts. Jack led a team toward the main dome. Alan took another group to attack the landing pads. Luis and his people targeted the processing plant where captured humans were being held. The Krathic never expected a coordinated attack. When the first mining drone exploded beneath a guard tower, they responded with confusion. When the second and third explosions came seconds later in different locations, panic spread through their ranks. Jack's team moved swiftly through the confusion. They had studied Krathic movements and knew exactly where to strike. Kate's toxin-coated weapons found the weak spots in alien armor. For every human that fell, 5 Krathic died. In the command center, Jack found himself face-to-face with a group of Krathic officers. Their translator broadcast their clicks and hisses. The soft meats have teeth. Amusing but futile. One of the aliens raised a weapon, but Jack was faster. His shot caught the creature at the joint between head and body. It fell with a sound like breaking pottery. Across the colony, Alan's group reached the landing pads. They had planted explosives on 3 of the 5 Krathic shuttles when they encountered heavy resistance. A group of elite Krathic warriors pinned them down behind a cargo container. "We need to reach that last shuttle," Alan shouted over the sound of alien weapons fire. "It's their command vessel." The shuttle sat in the center of the landing pad, larger than the others. A Krathic commander stood at its entrance, surrounded by guards. The alien's translator carried its voice across the battlefield. "Your resistance is a joke to us. Your primitive weapons cannot match our technology." Alan looked at the weapon in his hands. It was old, something from the colony's museum, a relic from Earth's last war. The M134 minigun had been part of a historical display, but Alan had gotten it working again. "Cover me," he told his team. "I'm going to have a word with the commander." Before they could stop him, Alan broke from cover and ran straight toward the Krathic position. Alien weapons fire followed him, but he moved in an unpredictable pattern, making himself a difficult target. The Krathic commander saw him coming and made a sound that the translator converted as laughter. "Your species still relies on kinetic weapons?" How amusing. Alan didn't respond until he was 30 yards away. Then he braced the heavy weapon against his body and squeezed the trigger. His words were lost in the thunderous sound as the barrel began to spin. The jokes ended fast, at 3,000 rounds per minute. The stream of bullets tore into the Krothic group. Their armor, designed to deflect energy weapons, provided little protection against the sheer volume of high-velocity metal. The commander fell first, its body jerking as hundreds of rounds punched through its shell. The guards followed seconds later. The psychological impact was even greater than the physical damage. The Krothic had never faced such a weapon before. They had never seen anything like the wall of fire that cut down their leaders in seconds. Fear, an emotion they usually caused in others, spread through their ranks. As the alien forces broke and scattered, Jack received word from Luis. The processing plant is secured. We found 63 colonists alive. Some are in bad shape, but they'll make it. For the first time since the invasion, Jack allowed himself to hope. Get them to the medical center. We've almost won this thing. But victory came at a cost. When Jack found Alan, the former Marine was sitting against the command shuttle, the massive gun at his side. Blood soaked his shirt from multiple wounds. Did we get them all? Alan asked, his voice weak. Almost, Jack said, kneeling beside him. Their mothership is still in orbit, but they can't land without these shuttles. Alan nodded. Good. He coughed and blood flecked his lips. You know what to do next, right? Jack gripped his friend's shoulder. We send them a message. Make sure they tell all their friends not to mess with humans. Alan smiled weakly. Exactly. No more jokes about soft meats. As medics rushed to treat Alan's wounds, Jack looked up at the sky. The alien ship was up there, watching, waiting. They had won the ground battle. But the war wasn't over, not yet. They needed to make sure these aliens, and any others who might come after, understood exactly what happened when you underestimated humanity. He picked up the Krothic commander's translator. It was time to send a message to the stars. The Krothic mothership hung in orbit above Epsilon 6 like a dark cloud. It had not moved since the ground forces were defeated. Jack Miller stood in the captured Krothic command shuttle, looking at the alien controls. Their victory on the ground had cost them dearly. 23 humans had died in the final attack, but they had won. Can you fly this thing? Jack asked Olivia. She had spent the last day studying the shuttle's systems. I think so. The controls are strange, but the basic principles are the same as our ships. Thrust, navigation, life support. Jack nodded. And the communications? That's easier, Olivia said. I've figured out how their system works. We can send a message whenever you're ready. Jack thought about what to say. They needed to make sure the Krothic never came back. More importantly, they needed to make sure the main Krothic fleet never came at all. Governor Long joined them in the shuttle. Her time as a prisoner had left her thinner and harder, but her mind was as sharp as ever. We need to access their database, she said. When I was captured, I saw them updating their records on humans. If we can send those records back to Earth, our military will know what we're facing. Olivia moved to a different control panel. I think this is their data system, but it's locked. Use the commander's access chip, Jack suggested. The one we took after Alan killed it. Olivia placed the small crystal-like object into a slot on the panel. The alien symbols on the screen changed, showing new information. We're in, she said. There's a lot here: star maps, species data, weapon specifications. Her voice trailed off as she scrolled through the alien database. What is it? Jack asked, seeing her face pale. They've done this before, Olivia whispered. To other species, dozens of them. They find a new world, test its defenses, then bring in the main fleet if the species is deemed processable. Have any species ever stopped them? Governor Long? Asked. Olivia continued reading. Only 2. And both were technologically far ahead of us. She looked up at Jack. According to their records, no Type 4 species has ever successfully resisted even their scouting parties. Jack's jaw tightened. Until now. They worked quickly, downloading the Krothic data to colony computers. It would take months for the information to reach Earth through normal channels, but it would eventually get there. Earth needed to know what might be coming. "I've got an idea," Jack said after studying the star maps. "The Krathic up there don't know exactly what happened. Here, they lost contact with their ground forces. They haven't sent more shuttles down. They're being cautious," Governor Long said. "Reassessing." "Exactly. Let's give them something to think about." Jack turned to Olivia. "Can you send images to the mother ship? Show them what happened to their troops?" Olivia nodded. "I think so. We have security footage from the final battle." "Good. Send it. Then send them a message." While Olivia worked, Jack gathered the other resistance leaders. Alan Foster was still in the medical center, but he would live. Luis and Kate joined them in the shuttle. "We're going to try something risky," Jack explained. "We need to convince that ship up there to leave and to tell their fleet that humans are too dangerous to mess with." "And if they don't believe us?" Luis asked. Jack looked at the shuttle around them. "Then we'll show them." Olivia called them back to the communication panel. "I'm ready to transmit." Jack nodded. "Do it." The images were sent first. The Krathic. Commanders watching in orbit saw their ground forces being systematically destroyed by creatures they had classified as easy prey. They saw their warriors fall to human ingenuity and determination. They saw their command units cut down by primitive, but devastatingly effective weapons. Then came Jack's message, translated into the Krathic language. "This was your expeditionary force against a single, lightly armed mining colony. Consider carefully what awaits you on Earth." Olivia added data about human military capacity. The Krathic would know that. Earth had nuclear weapons, billions of humans, and a history of warfare that spanned thousands of years. For 36 hours, there was no response from the Krathic vessel. It remained in orbit, silent and watching. The colony stayed on high alert, weapons aimed at the sky, waiting for the aliens' next move. "They could still destroy us from orbit," Governor Long said quietly as they watched the alien ship on their screens. "They have the weapons to do it." "But they won't," Jack replied. "Because if they do, they'll never know if we manage to send their data back to Earth. They'll never know if Earth is already preparing for them. It's too big a risk." He was right. On the morning of the 37th day since the invasion began, the Krathic mothership moved. It didn't attack. Instead, it slowly pulled away from Epsilon 6, accelerating toward the edge of the system. "They're leaving," Olivia said, watching the tracking data. 3 days later, a final communication arrived from the departing Krathic vessel. "The Krathic hegemony acknowledges the human species as Type 2. Major resistance expected. We propose a neutral buffer zone between our territories and offer terms for non-aggression." It wasn't surrender, but it was respect. The kind of respect earned only through blood and determination. 6 months later, Earth Defense Force ships arrived at Epsilon 6. They brought supplies, weapons, and engineers to fortify the colony. They also brought news. The data sent back about the Krathic had sparked the biggest military buildup in human history. Earth wasn't taking any chances. Jack Miller stood with Governor Long, Olivia, and Alan as they dedicated a memorial to those lost in what was now called the First Contact War. At the center of the memorial plaza stood a simple plaque, engraved, with the words that had marked their victory. The jokes ended fast at 3,000 rounds per minute. Alan, walking with a cane but otherwise recovered, placed his hand on the plaque. "Next time they won't be laughing at all." Jack nodded. Humanity had faced its first alien threat and survived. The Krathic had learned a valuable lesson. Humans might look like easy prey, but they were predators at heart. Any species that forgot that would pay the same price. As colony children played in the rebuilt plaza, Jack watched them with pride. These kids would grow up knowing that humans belonged among the stars, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. Any race that thought otherwise would find, as the Krathic had, that underestimating humanity was always a deadly mistake. The jokes had indeed ended fast, and the universe was now on notice.